Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm your host, Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq. Joining me at the market site in Times Square, we have Mark Weegan. He's the head of global policy over at DTCC. We're going to talk some financial regulation and G20 reform. Mark, it's great to have you with us at Market Site. Welcome. And you were just back from London, IDX, a lot of conversation around regulation, hot topic in Europe. Tell us a little bit about the benefits versus costs when they look at financial regulation.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'd love to talk about that. It's interesting, so we're in this period now, and I would say it's been a period that started probably a year or two ago, largely in sync with the change in the White House here in the United States. And there's really a revisiting to the work that had already been done, and so it's natural at this point in time to start asking the question, well, was it worth it? Are we better off than we were before, and were the costs that have been incurred and sunk so far, are those costs worth it? And I think the answer is very, very clearly yes. I have a little bit of a bias, having been part of some of those efforts on the other side, but clearly the system as a whole, the financial system as a whole, is much more resilient. The banking system is much more resilient. They're much better capitalized. It's especially true in the United States. Meanwhile, there have been a whole assortment of policies that have tried to de-risk some of the transactional activity that takes place in the capital markets. I think the derivatives industry is a good example of that. So to me, while there might be additional costs, the benefits far outweigh those.
And a big conversation over there was ESG policy, which is very prevalent in Europe. And while we might have the product here in the US, it's not as much of a conversation.
I agree with you, Jill. I think what's interesting is that you see very narrow pieces of the overall ESG agenda being discussed here in the United States, but it's mostly in the realm of discussion and almost the area of persuasion, as it were, because if you look at the House of Representatives, for example, there's a lot of discussion now around diversity in the financial services space. You have a subcommittee in the House Financial Services Committee that was formed just to devote itself to this topic. So you're seeing examples of interest in diversity within that broader ESG agenda being discussed here in the United States, but it's just not the same as what you see in Europe, and I know in your travels too. You hear those, or part of those same conversations, and there it's a very, very consistent topic of debate and discussion among policymakers.
It's encouraging to hear that the conversation is happening in the US because diversity is not a catchphrase that you're hearing right now, particularly what's happening in the broader context.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. I think that's true. And what else is interesting is that even though you might not see specific policies by way of laws or regulations being enacted here in the United States, just the mere fact that it's being discussed in a much more open way through these venues that I described, you can tell is having a change and having an impact on people's behavior within the space.
What were some of the other themes that came out of IDX?
Well, I think technology is always a key one, so we spent a fair amount of time talking about some of the new developments in blockchain technology, the development of the crypto asset space, let's call it. Yesterday, the SEC released a very important piece of staff guidance that talked about the application of the customer protection rule as it relates to crypto assets. So all that continues to be a very active area of discussion, something that we at DTCC are very much involved in. We actually, a few weeks ago now, submitted a letter to the SEC. Earlier in the year, we issued a white paper that talked about some of our views on crypto assets. So that's still remains a very, as I said, very active discussion, and something that we also discussed in London.
All right, Mark, great to have you with us at Market Site. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining me on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.